Hello, Jonathan. Good morning. Welcome to India.
Good morning.
Jonathan. So, may I see you?
I will turn my video on in just a second.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me find one of my school backgrounds.
Hi,
Hello. Good to see you as well.
Jonathan. It's really a great opportunity for me and for my students to know a little bit about the STEM school, STEM subjects, and about you and many things today. So,
Yes.
by the way, before I start the session, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. You want me to introduce myself? Yeah, I can do that. Everyone in my house is asleep still. because I have two daughters, but they're young. They're 6 and 4. And my wife as well, who's also a teacher. Um, So it is exciting to be here with all of you this morning. My name is Jonathan Perone, and I've been teaching for almost 15 years. And I started off teaching science. And then the last 6 or 7 years now, I've taught STEM or STEAM. And it's been a lot of fun to do that. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit about that. I also teach for two of the colleges here in Arizona in the United States, and I teach people who want to become teachers. So that's pretty fun. And then this morning, I'm actually wearing a code.org shirt here because I teach teachers how to teach coding too through code.org. So lots of fun different things.
So it seems that
Um,
I have just understood that you are teaching in different levels of the students, and so you are teaching for teachers, students, and many more. I think so. We can
yeah,
get many inputs from you.
yeah.
Before I introduce my students to you, here is one small question from my side. So could you please explain or differentiate the STEM and STEAM?
Yeah, sure. So originally, when this topic came up in education as STEM, it was science, technology, engineering, and math. And there were some people who thought if you taught science, then you were a STEM teacher, or if you taught just math or just technology. But the way that I looked at it from the beginning was you had to mix them all together to really be doing STEM. And then a few years ago, some people thought that there was something missing, and they decided to call it STEAM, STEAM, to add the fact that there's a lot of artistic and creative pieces in STEAM. And so, for example, I'll show you some pictures. We do a lot of computer aided design or Tinkercad work where students can make shapes and designs, and it's technology and there's science involved and math involved, but there's also art involved. There's also creativity. Um, and the reason I like that is sometimes if you just say STEM, some kids think, oh, I'm not good at science and math, so that's not for me. But if you say STEAM and say, no, come, you can be creative and if you're a good artist that can be helpful, you get more students involved. And so I really like that. And I think in the future, computers and robots are going to do a lot of the things we do now. Computers and robots are good at science, they're good at math, but they're not really artists. They're not creative. And that's what we're good at as humans is being creative. And so I really like adding in the A and making it STEAM.
That's really great information as far as the STEAM and STEM because in India some schools have already started these two things actually, but not in everywhere in India. But how far these two new curriculum systems have been succeeded in your country? Do you think that these two systems have succeeded? That means have they got a good feedback from the parents. So, what is the success rate of these two uh, curriculum systems?
You're talking about STEM and STEAM as the two systems? Um, I think that STEM is a really popular word, and everybody wants their child, all the parents, to have more STEM. STEAM is not, it's just not as well known, it's not as commonly used. Um, some organizations, so like Intel, right, big company makes computer chips. They do a lot of support for STEM, but they don't use the word STEAM at all. So there's still some disconnect between the two. But overall, in my teaching, I've always found the parents really are excited about having their kids have the opportunity, and the kids certainly love it. They love having a class where it's not about reading and writing and doing, math for no reason other than to do math. It's like, wow, I actually get to build something or make something and use my hands and use my, creativity. And so I think the students really enjoy it. Um, but there aren't a lot of schools where kids get it every day. So they might get it for a week or for a special project. We're going to do a STEM week or a STEM project. But um, my program, the kids get it every single day, and that's pretty unique. That's not very common.
So let's invite some of my students to track with you with their questions. Bhagyasri would like to ask. Bhagyasri,
Yes, sir.
audio.
Hi, sir. My name is Bhagyasri. I am studying 7th grade. My hobbies are reading books, playing games. My future ambition is doctor. My question is, what are the benefits of steam engine?
Okay, great. Well, it's very nice to meet you. The benefits of STEAM. So one of the things that I talk about with my students, I show them a video, and it's called The Future of Work, and it's all jobs being done by robots and computers. So it shows like Amazon, and it's all like robots sorting the packages, or it's vehicles driving themselves. Um, and so we know that the future is going to have more and more technology and computers and robotics. And even if you're not the one that's coding it or programming it, you need to understand how it works. So STEAM is really important for the future because more and more jobs, and this is even if you're a farmer. A lot of farming now uses automation for watering, for harvesting, for milking cows, all these things. They used to be done by a person by hand, now it's being automated. And so understanding STEM and STEAM is really valuable in all the different areas um, that you can imagine, all the different jobs that you might have. Being a doctor, having a computer that helps you, you know, determine what disease someone has or how to cure it. They even have machines that help with surgery now. And so STEM and STEAM are really important for that. That's a great question.
So, Yaraja, it's your turn.
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. My name is Neeraja. I'm studying 9th grade. I want to ask a question.
Hmm?
What
Sure.
is STEAM education and why is it important to the future of education?
Yeah. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but to me, STEAM is really combining these. So, for example, my students might do a project um, where they're designing something in Tinkercad and then 3D printing it and then using that 3D printed part to solve a problem. So there's the science of the materials, like, is this going to be strong enough? Is it going to be the right material for the job? And then there's technology because they're doing CAD and 3D printing engineering where you're solving a problem using technology. The art is the creative piece. Like, how's the design going to look? Is it going to solve the problem for your customer or your friend or whoever it is? And then there's obviously math involved. Is it going to fit? Is it going to actually work in the place that it needs to work? So for me, STEAM education is combining as many of those together. You don't have all of them every single time, but it's bringing those together into something that's more meaningful. And then as far as why it's important, you know, I was answering that with the last question as well. It's just you have to be able to see things in a bigger picture. You can't just be by yourself anymore and work by yourself. You know, the last young lady said she wanted to be a doctor. You have to work with teams of people and understand different parts that are coming together. And I think that's part of STEAM, is seeing how, wow, all these things are connected and related. And so I think that's really important in STEAM.
Taslima. Taslima, it's your turn.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
My name is Taslima. I am studying 7th grade. My hobbies are reading books, playing games. Can I ask you one question, sir?
Of course.
How do you integrate STEAM subjects?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that can be the hard part sometimes, because it's easy to do. We're going to do a science experiment, or we're going to answer a math question, but how do you put them all together? So sometimes it might be through a topic like robotics. In robotics, you have to think about like science and physics and speed. How fast is your robot moving, and how is it going to interact in an environment if it goes too fast or it's too strong? And then there's the math involved of that too, like is it too big or too small, measurement, or even coming back to speed again, where you're calculating how fast something is moving. And then a robot is obviously technology and engineering of putting it together. And again, for me, that artistic part for STEAM, it's not like just drawing a picture, which you might do as part of the planning, but it's how are you being creative? How is your robot different and better than everyone else's? And that is where the artistic part comes in. And even in something like medicine, like how is your ability to help someone different? How are you being creative to solve someone's problem? And I think that's really important for students and for adults to be creative.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Abhi, do you have a question? Abhi, do you have a question? Or yeah, Abhi, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Good morning. Hi, sir. I am Abhi, studying 9th class at JPHS.
Good morning.
Yes,
Yes.
come out with the question. Abhi,
What kind of
don't waste it.
classroom setup you have to teach STEAM subject?
So the setup, like the setup of the classroom.
Yeah, that is what is asking.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just started at a new school last year. The school kind of wanted to do more projects and more STEAM, and so they came and actually found me and asked me if I'd like to come over and teach. And so what they did is they knocked a wall down between two classrooms to give me a bigger room. And so what I decided to do is I would have different areas in my room. And I don't know if I'll be able to maybe share some pictures with you later of my classroom, but I have one corner, one section that's all 3D printing. And so I have all my machines that do, they create structures out of plastic that the students design. I have another part of my room where we have a laser cutter. And so it's a machine that can cut through cardboard and wood and acrylic plastic and engrave, and it's really precise, and it uses a laser to cut through the materials. And the students were using that this week, actually. Another part of the room, we have a vinyl cutter. So that's a machine that cuts through thin plastic, and you can make signs, you can make custom masks, custom clothing, those sorts of things. We recently set up a corner of my room as a kitchen, and my students are learning how to cook and bake, which is pretty fun. And then I have another part of my room that has tools for working with wood. So if they wanted to build something out of different pieces of wood, it's just little things like a hand saw and a drill, so you could cut some wood and screw it together. Nothing too fancy. Um, One part of my room is a green screen and photo booth. So students can go in there and they can record videos of themselves, and they can change the background. And so that might be to share what they've done in a project, or it might be to do a project for another class where they're pretending to be a news reporter. So we have lots of different things. Then we have little things like electronics and robots and things like that we can pull out when we need to. So that's kind of how my room looks. So I'll be hopefully share some pictures soon.
Yeah, sure. So Venkat Sivanagalaxmi, it's your turn.
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. My name
Hi.
is Nagalakshmi. I am studying 7th grade. My future ambition is teacher. My hobbies are reading books, playing games. My question is, do your students enjoy STEAM subjects?
That's a great question. We've been talking about that a lot lately, is how do you motivate students to want to do their work and to enjoy their schoolwork? And I'm very lucky that I teach STEAM because most of my students do really enjoy it. They get a chance um, to show me that they can do something well. And so let me give you a little background about my students. Our school is mostly for students who are way behind. So my students, like you, are in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, but they might read like they're in 2nd grade, or they might be able to do math like they're in 3rd grade. And so for whatever reason, they're way behind. And so sometimes it's hard for them because no one wants to feel dumb. No one wants to feel like they don't know the answers. And in my class, they can show me that they're smart and they're creative and they can do things. And I have a student who's not good at reading. He's in 6th grade, but he reads like he's 6 years old. But he's really good at design. He can get in Tinkercad and make really great designs and shapes and solve problems. So for him, it's a chance to show me and show his classmates, look, I'm really good at this, even though I struggle and it's hard for me to do other things. So I think the students really enjoy the STEAM work. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, sir.
Varshita, do you have any question? Radhasri, Ragini,
Yes, sir.
Kali.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
My name is Varshita. I'm studying 9th grade. My hobbies are reading books and playing games. Can I ask a question, sir?
Of course.
What topics do students learn in arts?
What do they learn in art?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, I was mentioning a little bit earlier that when we teach STEAM, that A in STEAM stands for art. We don't necessarily do just art by itself. So it's usually part of the project. So for example, we're doing a project this week where the students are designing little kind of attachments or weapons for a cup. So they take a cup and they put it on top of a robot and it rolls around on the floor. And then they're going to have two cups and they're going to kind of battle each other. And so they're designing these pieces that get attached to the cup. And I have some pictures of this. So their artwork for this project is doing sketches and drawings of what they want their attachments, their little weapons to look like that they're going to put on their cup. We've had actually people with businesses who've hired my students to create business logos for them. And then the students make the artwork, and then we might 3D print or vinyl cut their logos and give them to them. So the art for me is always part of a bigger project. So that's kind of how it works in my class.
Thank you, sir.
Kali
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Kali Krishna, do you have any question? Next we will, yeah, Kali.
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. My name is Kali Krishna. I'm studying 9th grade. My hobbies are reading books, playing games. My question is, what is your teaching philosophy?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Kali
What
Krishna,
is
ask
your
one more
teaching
time.
philosophy?
My teaching philosophy. That's a great question.
Yes, sir.
Um, so part of my teaching philosophy is that, every project, we have a saying that says it should have a low floor and a high ceiling. So what that means is it's really easy to get started. Anybody can do it, but you could also do really great things. You can do really hard things. So every project should have both. So for example, when we first start the year and we do design in Tinkercad, you could make a rectangle and put your name on it. And that's it. Just simple, really easy, like little kids could do it. Or I had a student who made a whole castle in Tinkercad, right? And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So that's what it means. It means you have to let students be able to start wherever they are, and they're going to be in different places, and then give them an opportunity to do great things. So it's not too easy and it's not too hard. It's right for them and it helps them grow. So that's part of my teaching philosophy. And the other thing is teach them things that are important. Teach them things that are meaningful for them, that are relevant to them. Don't teach them something if they're never going to need that information. So I feel it's really important to teach them things that will help them in the future. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Your turn. Oh, I'm sorry. Veda, do you have any question? Bhagyasri, yeah, you have already asked. Ramakrishna. Okay, yeah. Jonathan, I have one question from my side. So
Sure.
you have just shared a fact that there are different kinds of students with different abilities. Some
Mhm.
students may be good at mathematics. Some students may not be good at mathematics. So some students may be good at arts. Some students may not. So when you teach these STEAM subjects, so how can you integrate these all subjects? Because STEM is something that you have to integrate all the subjects at a time. So when a student struggles to learn mathematics, then how can you inject the mathematics abilities to that particular student who is struggling to understand? Because STEM is something you have to integrate, you have to teach it as a whole, not as a part. How do you manage to teach, particularly those students who struggles to learn a particular subject?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the things that I'll do is a lot of work is, in a group or as a team. And so you might have someone who's not as strong in the math, but maybe their partner can help them with that part. Um, and the other part of it, and when I teach my college students is I said, you have to have a relationship with your students and get to know them. So I know, oh, this student struggles in math and this project, they have to measure, they have to do this math. So I know that they're going to need extra help. And so that might be me, that might be a partner, that might be allowing them to use a tool like, you know what, we're doing this math, but here's a tool that helps you to do these calculations, whether it's a calculator or a program. If it's something like art, I might allow the student an option. You can draw it by hand, you can draw it on the computer, you can use CAD, because some students can put the pieces together in CAD, but they can't draw by hand. And some kids are the opposite. They can draw by hand, but they don't understand the spatial reasoning. How do I put the pieces together? So let them use the appropriate tool. And part of it is if they're not very good at something, then they need to practice. And so they still, they still have to do it. But when I assess them, like when I give them a grade, I will keep in mind where they started and grade them more on how much did they grow rather than where did they end up, right? Because some students, especially in my old school, some students already knew how to code when they came to me, and other kids had never heard of coding. So it's not fair to say you both have to do the same thing. But if you show me that you're making progress and you're growing, then that's what I'll assess. And so I think that's really important too, is to recognize some of our kids, they can do 8th grade math. They're in 8th grade, and some can do 2nd grade math. So I'm not going to expect the same things from them. And so I'll put the little supports in place to help those kids who are behind, and also extra challenges for those who are ahead. It's like, wow, you're done already, but what if you tried to do this? What this the extra thing? And then they'll go on and they'll get to do something else that's meaningful for them.
Ragini, Ragini, it's your turn. Ragini.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
My name is Ragini. I am studying 9th grade. I will ask one question, sir.
Sure.
What tips do students learn in
What do
Ask
they
you,
learn in?
Ragini.
What
Not
is
clear. I think you have to. No, no, no. I think
what
that's
is
not the. Maybe I think you have to correct your question and come back again. Karthik, meanwhile, do you have any question to ask? Karthik. Karthik.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Hi, sir. My name is Karthik. I'm studying. My hobbies are reading books, playing games, and watching TV. Sir, I want to ask one question, sir. What is the uses of Steam?
So how do I use Steam myself?
Yes.
Okay, that's that's a great question. Um, so last year, my family moved into a new house, and it is 70 years old. And so I do a lot of projects around the house, and I find that I use Steam with a lot of them. Um, for example, we wanted to build a carport, a place to park our car on the side of the house. And so I'm luckily my dad was able to help me actually, but we started off and we drew a sketch of what we wanted it to look like. And then we had to look at the science and understand how strong the pieces of wood would be and what size the wood needed to be to hold up the roof. And then we use different tools and technology to help us along the way to cut the wood, put it together, the metal brackets, screw them together. And then we would go up and we put on the roof ourselves. And all of these steps, there's lots of opportunities for you to use all of STEAM, lots of measurement and math, lots of calculations for how big it should be and how strong it should be. And then the art, the creative part was deciding what it would look like. Like no one's going to tell you it has to look this way or that way. So that's the creative part. And so we used all those pieces to build this carport where we could park our cars. Um, I took some old pieces of wood that we weren't using anymore, and I built a shed in our backyard, which is just a little room to store things in. Same thing, tools, measurement, engineering this solution to a problem. And so I use it quite often to just build things or fix things. And I find it's great. STEAM is a way to solve problems, and we always have problems to solve.
So Vedasri or Jagadish, and do you have any questions? Either Veda or Jagadish. Okay, let's move on to the another segment. Jonathan, actually, you have been teaching almost, I think, 20 years. Am I right?
Yep.
20 years. So when it comes to the STEAM subjects, how are the students tested in the examination system? And do you have any particular system of examination to test the students on the STEAM subjects? And what kind
You know,
of system, examination system is there?
so for testing is the question. Yeah, the short answer is we do not have a system for testing the kids. As a school or a district or a city or a state or a country, there's no specific tool for STEM or STEAM. And I was just talking to someone who works in my school district about that. And so what I choose to do in terms of like testing my students is we measure, instead of what they know, we measure what they can do, right? Their skills. And so what I look at in particular in STEAM are what I call the 4 C's. So the first C is critical thinking. Can they do critical thinking and solve problems? And then what evidence do they have to show me? So pictures and videos of their projects throughout the year that I'll look at and like, yeah, they were able to think critically and solve this problem. Another one of the C's is creativity. Are they creative? Do they come up with solutions that are different than other students? Another of the 4 C's is collaboration. Can they work with a team? Because we know in the future, almost every job you can imagine, you have to work on a team or work with other people. So that's really important. And the 4th C is part of that. It's communication. Do they know how to communicate with their partner? Can they present information? And so what I do is I use a rubric and I check how they've done on those 4 areas. And that's how I give students grades or feedback. It's like, well, in critical thinking, you showed me you were at, let's say, a 3 on the rubric. But in communication, you need to work on this. You're still at a 1 or a 2. And so it gives me a chance to talk with them about it, because they may not have to know how to drive a robot in their future, but they do need to know how to work with a group and think critically and be creative. So that's how I test them or assess them.
Yeah, that's really great thing. Because we have to measure the student not based on the paper, based on their abilities. So that's the
Mhm.
right and appropriate system of examination. So
I agree.
Rajni, do you have Rajni?
Yes, sir.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
sir.
Hello.
My name is Ragini. What tips do you students learning engineering?
So I think I
Engineering,
have to correct it. What topics do students learn in engineering? Because STEAM is engineering is one
right.
of the integrated of
Yeah.
STEAM.
So engineering, is, if you define it, it's solving problems using technology, right? That's kind of one of the ways you can define engineering. So it might be building a solution or making a solution for a problem. And everything that we do in my class starts off with a problem, like, you need to be able to do this, or we have a customer who wants this. How are you going to solve this problem? And so every time we do that and they solve the problem using technology, whether it's a design or building or robotics, that's part of engineering. And there's lots of different kinds of engineering. Of course, there's, computer systems engineering and coding. There's mechanical engineering, making things like robotics engineering. There's all sorts. So every time we do a project, they're doing little pieces of it. And so I don't ever say, today we're going to do just engineering. It's always part of the bigger project that they're doing, but they're always trying to solve problems, and that's really what engineering is all about.
So, Jonathan, actually, we have in this Zoom slot only 7 minutes time is left. If you don't mind, could you share something with my students regarding your STEAM subject? And you have earlier you told me that you would share something for my students. Is it possible now?
I'm sorry, share something what?
Sharing about your school and some thoughts, some information about your school with my students.
Sure. So my school is really tiny. There's only 100 students in the whole school, even though we have kindergarten through 8th grade, so 5 years old up to 13 or 14 years old, and we only have 100 students, so it's very small. As I said earlier, most of our students have had a really hard time in school. And it could be because they move around a lot, or they might be new to the country. They might have come from another country and they don't speak the language. And so school is really hard for them. And so our school is really all about taking care of the student, having a relationship, getting to know them, and then helping them learn. And so it's kind of a slower process, because you have to take the time to get to know them first, and then, then you can really help them learn. So that's kind of what our school looks like. So we spend the beginning of our day and the end of our day with something we call advisory or homeroom class. And we just use that time to get to know the students. Sometimes I'll read to my students. Um, we sit in a circle and we just talk about our lives. And so this gives us that chance to, really build a relationship and get to know them. Um, and that's what our school is really trying to do, is how can we make a community? And it's not just I'm the teacher and you're the student, learn this. It's like we're a community and we're going to learn this together. And so that's kind of how our school works. So I teach 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade. So it's 3 different groups of students this year. And each of those groups comes to my room because it's a maker space, right? It has all the tools and the equipment. And so they each spend some time during the day. And then there are other classes. They have a math class, and they have a science class where they also learn about writing. And then they have a social studies class where they also learn about reading. And so social studies might be history or learning about what's happening in our world. And so that's really important too. And so those are those classes. And then every day they have physical education, what we call PE, where they go and they learn about sports and being healthy and those sorts of things. So that's their schedule every day. They have the same classes, the same schedule, and it's pretty consistent. Hi, you're muted. I don't know if you're talking.
So, Jonathan,
Yes.
we have almost come to an end because we
Yes.
have just 4 minutes time is left in this time slot.
Okay.
So, could you please give a final message to my students? Because let me tell you something about my students.
Yeah.
Most of my students actually belong to the poorer community and the rural background, but they have passion to do something in life.
Yeah.
So a teacher like me have been trying my level best to expose them to the rest of the world by involving a great educators like you almost every day. Every day is a great day for me and for my students because we get to know a little information about a particular subject. So yesterday we learned about the biology. Today we are learning about the STEAM. Maybe tomorrow something else.
That's great.
So could you please give a final message to my students?
Yeah.
Just 2-3 minutes.
First, I think this is wonderful, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to be here with all of you. And I want to thank you for your questions. They were wonderful questions. So I think my final message is that there's so much opportunity today that there wasn't in the past, and students, no matter where they start, can do great things. And I think that's so important to remember. And you're so fortunate to have a teacher who is providing these experiences for you. And that's so amazing because we don't just live in our neighborhood. We don't just live in our city anymore. We live in our country and we live in a global community. We live in the world. And with technology like Zoom and like cell phones and the internet, we can connect with people, and you might travel or you might work with people from another country just from being at home, just like we're doing right now. And so I think that's so exciting, and that's such a great opportunity for us to be friends in the world rather than just friends in our school or our neighborhood. And so I think that's really exciting for all of you who are growing up today, because when you're a grown up in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, this is going to be even more true. We're going to be even more connected across the globe. And there's going to be so many opportunities for you to be helpful. And I think that's the future, is how can I use my job, my career to be helpful? And so some of you said you wanted to be doctors or teachers. And I think about the future, and the future of work, the future of jobs is in things that are helpful. How do we help each other? How do we help our communities? How do we solve problems? And if you're able to do those things, then you're going to be able to be successful and do the things you want to do. Um, and so, it's the same thing I'm sure you hear, is to work hard and try your best and know that you're not the same as everyone else in the room. You're not the same as everyone else in the Zoom, or even in your house. If you have siblings, you're not all the same. You're your own person. And that's what makes us special as human beings, is we're all unique. We all bring different perspective. We see things different. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here with all of you, and excited to see your future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank
Jonathan,
you.
for
Thank
valuable
you.
time, that morning time. So we look forward to connect you one more time.
Wow,
So
that'd be
until
great.
then,
Okay.
students, children, say bye to Jonathan
Bye,
and say
sir.
good.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
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 Bye, sir.
Bye.